The rain poured heavily outside, tapping rhythmically against the massive glass windows of the mansion. Inside, in a dimly lit study, Daniel Carter sat in his leather chair, staring blankly at the golden chandelier hanging from the ceiling. The fire crackled in the fireplace, casting flickering shadows across the walls, but no warmth could reach the cold emptiness in his heart. Daniel had everything: a billion-dollar empire, luxury cars, a mansion that could fit 100 people, and a name that carried weight in the business world. But what he didn't have was love. Real love. Women flocked around him like bees to honey, but he knew their true intentions. It was always the same cycle: smiling faces, sweet words, and endless admiration until they got what they wanted. Then, one way or another, their true colors would show. They wanted his wealth, his status, his name. But none of them wanted him. The man behind the fortune. The man who stayed up at night, longing for someone who would hold his hand without expecting a diamond bracelet in return. He exhaled deeply, running a hand through his perfectly styled dark hair. His phone vibrated on the table, flashing a name he didn't want to see: Melissa. Another woman who had promised to love him but left when she realized his wealth wouldn't be thrown at her feet like confetti. He ignored the call. He was tired of this, tired of the fake love. Standing up, he walked toward the window, watching as the rain blurred the city lights below. He could buy anything in the world, but he couldn't buy what he truly needed: someone who would love him for who he was, not for the number of zeros in his bank account. Then, in that moment of silence, an idea formed in his mind. What if he left all of this behind? What if he disappeared into a place where no one knew him? A place where he wasn't Daniel Carter, the billionaire, but just a simple, ordinary man. Maybe then he would find someone who loved him for real. The thought sent a rush of excitement through him. It was reckless, unthinkable, but it was the only way. The next morning, Daniel made up his mind. He called his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, the powerful business tycoons who had built an empire from scratch. They were in their grand estate, thousands of miles away, but their voices carried the same authority through the phone. "You want to what?" his father's deep voice boomed. "I want to leave the city for a while," Daniel said firmly. "I want to live a simple life, away from all of this." His mother's voice, softer but no less sharp, cut through the silence. "Daniel, you are our only son. You have responsibilities. You can't just throw everything away because of your emotions." "It's not about throwing anything away, Mom," Daniel said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I just need to know if there's someone out there who will love me for me, not for my money." His father scoffed. "And you think running away will change that?" "I think it's worth finding out." There was a long pause. Then his mother sighed. "We can't stop you, Daniel. You are a grown man. But remember, this is your choice. If things don't go as you expect, you'll have no one to blame but yourself." "I understand," Daniel said. And just like that, his decision was final. He gave his assistant strict orders. No one must know where he was going. He withdrew only a small amount of money, packed a simple bag with basic clothes, and left his phone behind. He didn't need luxury where he was going. As he drove out of the city, leaving behind the towering skyscrapers and blinding lights, a sense of freedom filled his chest. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the billionaire heir. He was just Daniel. He didn't know what awaited him at the end of this journey. He didn't know if he would find love or if this was just a foolish dream. But one thing was certain. He was about to start the most important chapter of his life. The journey was long, stretching over miles of endless roads, twisting through hills, valleys, and small towns where no one knew the name Daniel Carter. The further he drove, the more he felt like he was shedding the skin of the billionaire life he had always known. After hours on the road, he finally arrived at Willow Creek, a quiet, remote town tucked far away from the bustling cities. It was the kind of place where life moved slowly, where people greeted each other warmly, and where money wasn't the only language spoken. The air smelled fresh, untouched by pollution, and the streets were lined with small wooden houses, tiny grocery stores, and a town square where children played without a care in the world. Daniel stepped out of the old car he had rented for the trip, feeling the weight of his past slowly slipping away. He was no longer Daniel Carter, the billionaire. Here he was just Daniel, a stranger, a nobody. He walked down the dusty road, looking around for a place to stay. That was when he saw it, a small wooden sign hanging outside a tiny worn-out house. Rooms for rent, affordable, perfect. Knocking on the door, he waited. A moment later, it creaked open, revealing an old man with kind eyes and wrinkled skin. His clothes were simple, his face weathered with years of hard work. "Can I help you, son?" the old man asked, eyeing him curiously. Daniel cleared his throat, trying to sound as natural as possible. "Yes, sir. I'm looking for a place to stay. I don't have much money, but I can work in exchange for food and rent." The old man studied him for a moment, then gave a small smile. "You look like a city boy. What brings you to a small town like this?" Daniel hesitated. He couldn't tell the truth. "Not yet. I just needed a fresh start," he said simply. The old man nodded slowly, as if he understood. "Well, I'm Mr. Henry Walker. This is my home. I don't usually take in strangers, but something tells me you're not a bad person. You can stay. But you'll have to work." Daniel nodded eagerly. "I don't mind. I'll do anything." And just like that, his new life began. The next morning, Daniel woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside his small, creaky bed. He stretched, feeling his muscles ache from the stiffness of the old mattress. This was nothing like the silky sheets and king-sized bed he was used to, but he reminded himself, this was what he wanted. He quickly got dressed in the plain clothes he had packed, simple jeans and a faded shirt, before stepping outside. The sun was bright, casting a golden glow over the fields and wooden houses. "Daniel!" He turned to see Mr. Walker waving him over. Beside him stood a young woman, wiping her hands on her apron. She had bright, intelligent eyes, a soft smile, and long brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail. She wasn't wearing expensive makeup or flashy clothes, just a simple dress that somehow made her look effortlessly beautiful. "This is my daughter, Emma Walker," Mr. Walker introduced. "She helps me run things around here." Daniel extended his hand, offering a friendly smile. "Nice to meet you, Emma." Emma hesitated for a second before shaking his hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "You're the new guest." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, He almost said Daniel Carter, but stopped himself just in time. "Just Daniel." "Well, just Daniel," she said, smirking. "You better get ready to work. We don't do lazy people here." Daniel chuckled. "I wouldn't dream of it." Over the next few days, Daniel worked harder than he ever had in his entire life. He helped with fixing fences, carrying heavy bags of grain, and even washing dishes in their small kitchen. His hands, which had only ever held business contracts and luxury watches, were now covered in blisters. His expensive cologne was replaced with the scent of sweat and fresh earth. But something strange happened. For the first time in his life, he felt free. There were no business meetings, no fake smiles, no women pretending to love him just for his money. Just simple, honest work, and the kind of people who gave without expecting anything in return. And then there was Emma. At first, she treated him like any other worker, giving him tasks, making sure he did them right, and laughing at his city boy's struggles. But as the days passed, she started opening up to him. They would talk late into the evenings after work, sitting on the porch as the cool night breeze brushed against their skin. Daniel learned that Emma had grown up in Willow Creek her entire life. She had big dreams. She wanted to go to college, explore the world, maybe even start her own business one day. But money had always been tight, and she stayed behind to take care of her father. One night, as they sat under the stars, Emma turned to him with a curious look. "You know, Daniel, you don't talk much about your past." Daniel stiffened slightly. "There's not much to say." Emma studied him for a moment. "You don't seem like someone who grew up in a place like this." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Maybe I just needed a change." She didn't press further. Instead, she gave him a soft smile. "Well, whatever brought you here, I hope you find what you're looking for." Daniel looked at her kind eyes, her genuine smile, the way she spoke with no pretense, no hidden agenda. Maybe, just maybe, he already had. But just as he started to believe he had found peace, something happened that shook his world again. And it all started with the arrival of another man, someone who had his eyes set on Emma. Daniel had started feeling comfortable in Willow Creek. The once strange, quiet town now felt like home. He had grown used to waking up early, working with Mr. Walker, and sharing laughs with Emma. Every evening, as the sun set behind the hills, he would sit with her on the wooden porch, listening to her talk about her dreams. For the first time in his life, he wasn't worried about money, deals, or fake relationships. Here he felt real. And Emma, she was becoming more than just a friend. But then, everything changed. It started on a warm Friday afternoon. Daniel had just finished stacking firewood when he heard Emma's voice, laughing. But it wasn't with him. Curious, he wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned toward the front yard. There stood a man, Jake Peterson. Tall, confident, and dressed far better than the usual Willow Creek folk. Jake had sharp features and a cocky smirk. His polished leather boots, crisp shirt, and the expensive watch on his wrist were clear signs. He wasn't from here. Daniel's heart tightened as he watched Emma smile at Jake. Not the way she smiled at him, but still, she looked happy. "Who's that?" Daniel asked, walking over to Mr. Walker. The old man sighed, crossing his arms. "That's Jake Peterson. He's the son of one of the wealthiest men around here. Owns a few businesses in the next town." Daniel frowned. "And what's he doing here?" Mr. Walker gave him a knowing look. "He's been after Emma for a while now. Wants to marry her." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Emma, marry Jake." He watched as Jake handed her a small wrapped box. She laughed, shaking her head, but accepted it anyway. Daniel felt a sharp sting in his chest. Had she ever smiled at him like that? Had she ever looked at him the way she looked at Jake? For the first time since coming to Willow Creek, Daniel felt something he had never experienced before: jealousy. Over the next few days, Jake's presence became impossible to ignore. He would show up at the house, bringing expensive gifts, gold bracelets, perfumes, and books from the city. He took Emma on walks, made her laugh, and even helped Mr. Walker with the farm. Daniel hated every second of it. One evening, after Jake left, Daniel found Emma sitting alone on the porch, looking at the gift he had given her, a delicate silver necklace. "You like it?" Daniel asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Emma turned to him, her expression unreadable. "It's beautiful." Daniel clenched his fists. "Do you like him?" Emma blinked, clearly surprised by the question. "Jake. He's nice." Daniel scoffed. "Nice?" Emma sighed. "Look, Daniel, I know what you're thinking. Jake is a good man. He's kind, hardworking, and rich." Daniel interrupted before he could stop himself. Emma's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Nothing. Forget I said anything. But Emma didn't let it go. She turned to face him fully. No, Daniel. Say what's on your mind. Daniel exhaled deeply. I don't think money should be the reason to choose someone. Emma's expression softened. You think I'm with Jake for his money? Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. Emma shook her head, standing up. Daniel, if you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, don't assume things about me. She walked away, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. That night, Daniel lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. His heart was restless. He had come to Willow Creek to find true love, someone who would love him for who he was, not for his wealth. But now, for the first time, he realized something terrifying. He had already found her, and he was losing her. The next morning, he woke up with a new determination. He had to tell Emma the truth about his feelings. But before he could, Jake made a shocking announcement. At breakfast, he arrived at the house, standing tall with a confident smile. I wanted to say this earlier, but I thought I'd wait for the right moment, Jake said, his eyes locking onto Emma's. I spoke to your father, and he gave me his blessing. Emma, I want you to be my wife. The room fell silent. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Emma's eyes widened. Jake took her hand. You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Emma pulled her hand back gently, looking at him uncertainly. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. That night, as Emma stood outside under the moonlight, Daniel walked up to her. Emma, he said, his voice raw. Don't marry him. She turned to him, surprised. Daniel. He took a deep breath. I don't have gold. I don't have expensive gifts. But what I do have is my heart. And it belongs to you. Emma stared at him, her expression unreadable. For a moment the world stood still. Would she choose Jake, the rich, confident businessman? Or would she choose Daniel, the simple, hard-working man who had nothing to offer but love? The answer would change everything. The air between Daniel and Emma was thick with unspoken emotions. After Daniel's confession, Emma had stood frozen, staring at him, her heart pounding. She had always known there was something special about him, something different from the other men she had met. But love, she had never considered it. Not like this. But before she could say a word, Jake's proposal still hung in the air, demanding an answer. Her father had already given his blessing. The pressure was overwhelming. I need time to think, Emma had whispered before walking away, leaving Daniel standing there in the cold night. The next morning, Emma avoided Daniel. She was confused, torn between the stability Jake offered and the raw, uncertain emotions Daniel had stirred within her. Her father, Mr. Walker, noticed her hesitation and pulled her aside. Emma, he said gently, Jake is a good man. He can provide for you, give you a good life. Emma swallowed hard. But do I love him? Mr. Walker sighed. Love isn't always about feelings, my dear. It's about security, about making the right choice for your future. Emma didn't answer. Deep inside, she knew she didn't love Jake. Not in the way a woman should love a man she would spend forever with. And Daniel. Her heart raced at the thought of him. The way he made her laugh, the way he understood her, the way his eyes held emotions he tried so hard to hide. That night, she finally made up her mind. She was going to reject Jake's proposal. But fate had other plans. The next evening, a grand dinner was arranged at the Walker house. Jake arrived first, dressed in a fine suit, carrying yet another expensive gift. He smiled, confident. as if he already knew what Emma's answer would be. Daniel watched from a distance, his chest tightening. Then Emma walked in looking nervous. She took a deep breath and faced Jake. "Jake," she started, her voice soft. "I can't accept your proposal." Silence. The room grew still as Jake's expression changed, from confidence to disbelief. "What?" he asked, forcing a chuckle. "You're joking, right?" Emma shook her head. "I'm sorry, but I don't love you the way I should." Daniel's heart swelled with hope. But before he could celebrate, something unexpected happened. A voice spoke up from behind them. "I'll marry you, Jake." Emma whipped around. Her best friend Lily was standing there. Everyone gasped. Lily, her closest friend, was offering herself to Jake. Jake blinked, then smirked. "Really, Lily?" Lily smiled sweetly. "Of course. I've always admired you, and I know I can be the wife you need." Emma felt like the ground had been pulled from under her. Her best friend. Jake hesitated only for a moment before shrugging. "Well, at least someone here appreciates what I have to offer." And just like that, Jake accepted Lily's proposal. Daniel stared at Emma, waiting for her reaction. But she simply lowered her head, hiding the hurt in her eyes. Days passed, and Willow Creek was buzzing with news about Jake and Lily's sudden engagement. The betrayal stung, but Emma tried to convince herself it didn't matter. Meanwhile, Daniel struggled with his emotions. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her he was still here, still waiting. But Emma withdrew. She kept herself busy, avoiding him, as if afraid of what she might feel if she let her guard down. One evening, Daniel found her by the river, skipping stones into the water. He hesitated before speaking. "Emma, are you okay?" She gave a small smile. "I should be. You don't have to pretend." Emma sighed, looking at him. "Daniel, what if I choose wrong? What if I regret my decision?" He took a step closer. "You won't. Not if you follow your heart." Emma searched his eyes, seeing the truth in them. But before she could say anything, a loud commotion came from the village square. They both turned toward the noise. And what they saw next changed everything. The village square was in chaos. People gathered in clusters, whispering and gasping. Some pointed, others shook their heads in shock. Daniel and Emma rushed toward the commotion, their hearts pounding. Then they saw him. A handcuff. Two uniformed police officers stood beside him as the village chief addressed the crowd. "This man, Jake Reynolds, has been exposed as a fraudster," the chief announced. "He has deceived many with fake business deals and stolen fortunes from unsuspecting investors. His properties have been confiscated, and he is to be taken into custody immediately." Gasps filled the air. Lily, standing at the front, looked pale as a ghost. She turned to Jake, her voice trembling. "Tell them it's not true. Please." Jake scoffed. "You think I care? You were just a desperate woman who wanted a rich husband. Well, guess what? There's no more wealth left." Tears filled Lily's eyes. She had thrown away her friendship with Emma for nothing. Emma stood frozen, watching as the man she had once been pressured to marry was exposed. Then Jake turned toward Daniel. "You," he spat bitterly. "I always knew there was something about you." His eyes narrowed. "You're not just a simple farmhand, are you?" Silence fell. Emma turned to Daniel, confused. "What is he talking about?" Daniel swallowed hard. It was time. Taking a deep breath, Daniel stepped forward and faced Emma. "I need to tell you the truth," he said, his voice firm but gentle. Emma's heart pounded. "I'm not poor, Emma. My real name is Daniel Carter. I come from a wealthy family in the city." Her breath caught in her throat. I came here because I wanted to find love that wasn't based on money. Every woman I met in my old life only wanted my wealth. But you were different. You helped me without expecting anything in return. Emma took a step back, her mind spinning. You lied to me, she whispered. All this time you deceived me. Daniel's eyes darkened with guilt. I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to know if love could exist without money. Emma clenched her fists. And what if I had known from the start? Do you think I wouldn't have cared about you? Do you think so little of me? Daniel sighed. That's not what I meant. But she shook her head. I trusted you, Daniel. And now I don't know what to believe. She turned and walked away. Daniel watched her go, his heart breaking. Days passed, and the village slowly returned to normal. Jake had been taken away, and Lily, now abandoned and ashamed, left town without saying goodbye. Daniel stayed, hoping for a chance to fix things with Emma. One evening, he found Mr. Walker sitting outside their home, watching the sunset. Daniel hesitated before speaking. Sir, I know you're angry with me, but I truly care for Emma. Mr. Walker studied him for a long moment before sighing. Son, I was angry at first, but when I look at you, I don't see a liar. I see a man who made a mistake because he was afraid of being hurt. Daniel swallowed hard. Do you think she'll ever forgive me? Mr. Walker smiled faintly. That's up to her. The next day, Daniel gathered his courage and went to Emma. He found her by the river, their favorite spot. She didn't look at him when he approached. I'm leaving, he said quietly. Her heart skipped a beat, but she remained silent. I just wanted you to know. I never lied about how I felt about you, Daniel continued. I love you, Emma. I've loved you from the moment you offered me a plate of food when I had nothing. A tear slid down Emma's cheek. Daniel sighed. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I had to tell you before I go. He turned to leave. Daniel. His heart leaped. He turned back, and there she was, standing before him, eyes full of emotion. You broke my trust, she said softly. But you also showed me what real love is. A shaky breath left his lips. Does this mean? Emma smiled. It means don't leave. Relief flooded through him as he pulled her into a tight embrace. I love you too, she whispered. And under the golden sunset, Daniel and Emma finally found what they had been searching for all along. True love.
This story teaches us that true kindness goes beyond appearances. In life, wealth and status may come and go, but a good heart and genuine care for others are what truly matter. Never look down on someone because of their current situation. Life can change in an instant. Sometimes, the people we least expect are the ones who will stand by us in our lowest moments. Wow! If you've watched this story up to this point, you are the real MVP. You are the true VIP. I see you, I appreciate you, and I truly love you. Your constant support and engagement mean the world to me. Every time you watch, like, and comment, you're helping this channel grow, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. To my returning subscribers, thank you for always coming back, you are family. And if this is your first time watching, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and share with your friends. And of course, if you want to see more amazing stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Your support keeps this channel going, and I promise to keep bringing you the best content. Stay blessed, and see you in the next story.